Hey folks, it's Caro here from the Rescued podcast. Before we get started today, I wanted to share the really exciting news that we've now passed 100,000 downloads from just 21 episodes. Now, that blows my mind and reinforces my belief that stories are what holds society and community together. It's how we learn, laugh, cry, and hopefully become better humans. A huge thanks not only to Paddy Palin for helping out with the costs that come from doing this, but also to the master, Posty Dave, for his immense skill and patience in the editing. Thanks, mate. But also a massive thanks to the support, the comments, the reviews, and even the people that I just meet out randomly who tell me that they've listened to an episode and it's really stuck with them. That means a whole lot. So thank you so much. And not only are Paddies supporting me with the costs, but they're also cheering on the fabulous Rescued listeners by giving away a $50 gift card and an Nalgene bottle for every episode. This episode's prize goes to Carly JB, who was so engrossed with Ross's story in the last episode that she didn't hear her washing machine flooding her laundry. All you need to do to be in the running is simply leave us a rating and review on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and then jump into the entry form in the show notes to enter. Oh, and Carly JB, please get in touch with me via that form so I can get you your prize. Now, on to the episode. Rescued is a podcast of conversations with rescuers and those who've been rescued. It's about the lessons we learn about ourselves, the places we go and why, without judgment, to help us have better adventures, manage risk, and deal with the unexpected. When we think about the people who turn up when things go wrong in the wild, we probably picture helicopters, ropes, and flashing lights. What we might not picture is a surfer climber from Coolum Beach who spent his younger years messing around sea cliffs and canyoning in the Blue Mountains, and who now leads and trains others in some of the most technically demanding rescues on Queensland's Sunshine Coast. You know, there's been a lot of chatter about the increase of accidents on Queensland's Glasshouse Mountains and places like Mount Barney in recent years. And today's guest is clear that it's never just a Queensland Fire Department operation. There's a big role played by others, like volunteers from SES, locals, traditional owners, ambulance and police. And he's generous in his respect for every one of them. This is an episode about preparation, consequence, and knowing where we sit, our competence as hikers, as adventurers, as well as the load on our rescuers. So if you've ever scrolled past a stunning image of a mountain and thought, I want to go there, this one's especially for you. Here's my chat with Billy. It's so lovely to meet you today, Billy. And I'd love to start just getting an understanding of how you came to be doing the work you're doing now. And before we even start chatting about what that work is and how it's so closely related to so many of us who love things in the bush and love going out for adventures and getting amongst it all, what's your outdoor loves and how did you find yourself doing this kind of work?
I've got a climbing background, Caro. And I guess it goes back to when I was a teenager. You know, I started climbing when I was at school and then I kind of put it down for a little while. And then I ended up working in the eastern suburbs in Sydney. I moved down there for a few years and I started climbing again on the sea cliffs down there. And then obviously from there I graduated up to the Blue Mountains and, you know, I was climbing and I was canyoning. I was doing a lot of canyoning up there as well. We're going down through Clawstraw Canyon and all the canyons all the time. I guess that's sort of where it sort of reinvigorated my love for that. You know, my two passions in life are surfing and climbing, I guess. So, and now I was working as a lifeguard for Waverley Council. I got the best of both worlds. You know, I was surfing and just on my days off, if the surf was rubbish, I'd go climbing.
Can you just tell me a little bit like what it's like to be in those places and how those places and those doing those things made you feel, like, you know, why you were drawn and why you kept coming back to climbing and why you kept getting more into canyoning and spending time in these places?
Makes you feel alive, you know, just to describe what it feels like to be on the side of a mountain, just enjoying something and to love it that much is really, really hard to talk about that to someone who doesn't do that themselves, because everything's breathtaking about it. It's just the excitement of the climb, just being outside and doing stuff is just the greatest gift that we've got, to be able to do that and to be able to live in an area where we can do that. I can jump in my car and I can go for 45 minutes either way, and I can be in great climbing areas. I can be hiking. I can go 2 blocks from where I live and I can be out in the surf. It's just fabulous. I'm just, and that there's not a day goes past that I don't think about how lucky I am. And then to be able to do it for work, you might not get paid the greatest in the world, but I love what I do for work, and it's just to be able to incorporate my job into my to what I do, what I do in my spare time. That's just a gift.
So you're not in Bondi, you're not in Waverley, you're not in Sydney anymore. Where do you find yourself these days?
At Coolum Beach.
Coolum Beach. And so for those not familiar with sort of Australian geography, can you just...
20 minutes south of Noosa Heads, which is probably an hour and a half north of Brisbane.
Okay, so we're up in Queensland.
Yeah.
What's the climate like up there?
I would like to say that it's beautiful all year round, but we've had a fair whack of swag of rain this year, so it's but most of the time it's pretty good. I mean, even today, it's fabulous today. It's a little bit of a southerly blowing on it today, so the surf's not that great, but the outside air temperature's probably 23, 22, 23. Which is everyone up here is whinging about how cold it is.
and it's June right now, so it's Australian winter. Yeah, not bad.
The water temperature's still sort of like 21, so it's nice,
You mentioned there that you get to do these kind of activities we've just talked about, that climbing and that's, whether it be on a mountain or canyoning, just hiking, being in nature, and you get to do it for work. Let's unpack that a bit. What do you actually do for work and who employs you and how did that all come about?
So I'm a firefighter with Queensland Fire Department. My station I work out of Noosa Fire Station, which is probably one of the most sought after fire stations in Australia, but it's taken me a while to get there, but yeah, I am there.
Okay, so if I think about, and this is from, a punter's head perspective, is I go, okay, fire department. All right, so is it, don't you just fight fires? You've just been talking about climbing and canyoning and hiking and being in the bush. How do the two come to cross over?
Okay, so obviously firefighting, we put fires out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I guess road traffic crashes and accidents are another big part of our thing. But, our core business now has changed over the years, so we've the fire service has had to develop along with that as well. And, we've got the Glasshouse Mountains on our doorstep here, and we've got Bruyar, which is a big climbing area up in Gympie, just outside of Brisbane. On the Gold Coast, we've got Mount Barney, and we've got all the Gold Coast hinterland. So we've had to diversify with the population and what people choose to do. So probably one of our core businesses now is mountain rescue. Up on the Sunshine Coast. It's on the Glasshouse Mountains. Like we'll potentially do 100 rescues a year, between 60 to 100 rescues a year, depending on what it is. And those rescues they could be very, very simple ones, just helping people down, or they could go right to the other end of the scale, like it has this year. We've had 3 fatalities. So the fire service, 2016, we got called to a job on Mount Biwa, and it was your classic job. It had been raining for a few days, and there was 2 young fellas decided to go climbing up there to go for a hike. So as most of your people on your website would know, and the people who listen to you know, Australia's bushwalking grades, they go from sort of like 1 to 5. Okay, 5 being you need to have some skills. You need to be prepared for that. And after that, we start to go into the Eubank climbing side of things. So there was a fella who was a climber, Eubank, and he developed this system on grading. So in America they use different, and Europe they use different. So it's like 4 and 5 A, B, and or 1, 2, 3, and it goes up to 10 sort of thing, depending on what you're doing. It could be trad climbing or sport climbing. So but in Australia we use this system, and it's basically great. It goes from 1 up to high 30s. High 30s being a blank wall that you look at and just go, I need a ladder.
Yeah. Or Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You need to be world-class climbing to be climbing at that. So anything over, I would say, sort of like a 17 to 21, you're starting to get into the grades of being a good climber. And anything over sort of like 21 up to sort of like 25, 26, you need to be a very good climber. So our grade 1, which is what our tourist trails are up here, grade 1 and 2, they're depending on what side of the mountain you're on. If you're on the other side, it's grade 4. They're not hikes anymore, and they're not, and people call them scrambles, but they're not. They're actually graded climbs. So they're
right.
So I would call them climbs of consequence. So meaning that if something goes wrong, you need to have some skills to be able to get out of that, because the consequences of you not having those skills or you not being prepared, they can be anything from just needing us to get up there and help you down to catastrophic, and I think this is where it's starting to fall towards with people. And I don't like to use social media as the blame for everything, because there's plenty of good things that come out of it too. And obviously a podcast like this and everything, like people can, there's good groups and there's good information to be shared, but there's also bad things that get shared on there too. And it trivializes the consequences of what can happen when you see a couple of young punters who are supremely fit go, oh, we're going to climb 15 peaks in one day, or we're going to zip up there. Yeah, and they can do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the average punter, if something goes wrong and they're not prepared, what do you do then, So our big thing is promoting being prepared and having skills. You need to be able to make a correct decision on the day, and that's not what's happening. People aren't making a correct decision, and they're not timely decisions either. They're reactive decisions.
And so one of the things I want to dive into a bit then is even that question in the mind of people. No, it's not even a question, but dialing back before they've even made that thought of, oh, I'm going to do that. And it's that sense in our heads that where do we fit in our existing capability or our existing fitness and our existing experience levels to how do we come to making those decisions that make us think that's the right scramble, hike, walk, climb for me? I think it's a really difficult skill to get into, because it sort of starts digging into things like, our own sense of self and what we think we're capable of. Yeah. But it's also that we don't know what we don't know. So if we've never experienced even a grade 5 hike.
And that's a difficult hike.
Yeah.
For most of the population, that's a difficult hike. You need to be prepared. I think, Cara, it goes back to, and I don't like to harp on people. I definitely don't like lecturing people about stuff. That's not me,
Nah.
People don't know, so they just do stuff, and it becomes, okay, well, there's no consequence to this, so what I'm doing must be right, and I'm just going to keep doing it. And then they'll take someone else and show someone else. So that confidence builds up, and it's probably an unjust confidence because they don't have the experience for it. They're not bad people. Their mindset is they want what we want. But we're trying to sort of say, get some experience. That in the mountains, the things that kill people are, distraction. They get distracted by stuff, and they make a bad decision, But yeah, so surrounding yourself by people who are like you and going out and learning from other people, it's like getting mentors and going out. Don't do something the first time on your own if you don't have the experience to it. Simple things like doing a nav course, learning a little bit about navigation, learning if you get stuck out overnight, having the right equipment to bunker down and stay the night, have a phone, hey mum or whoever, hey, we're just up here, we're all good, we're coming down tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, I've had to do that a few times.
Yeah.
We're coming down tomorrow, It's just don't soldier on. Just make an appropriate decision for that point of time and stick by it, What's time? A couple of hours,
Or even if, and this comes back to that point you said about the whole preparation being one of the big messages that you like to talk about is if you're prepared and you've got the right stuff, it doesn't matter if you're going to be out overnight because you've got the stuff, Do you want to talk about that preparation? Like if you were imagining you're having a chat now, let's think you've got people, either maybe locals who live in the area around, say, Glasshouse, or visitors, people coming in, tourist visitors coming to be in the area, and they've done some scrolling and they've seen these beautiful, beautiful images of such these precious places that are around you, and they go, oh, I want to go and feel what it feels to be amongst that. What would be your message to them? What would you want to say?
So the first thing I would look at was, if it was me, I'd probably have a look and see what sort of shoes they got on. That would be the immediate thing that I would be able to tell as they were walking towards me from what they were wearing and what shoes they had on as to pretty much what experience they've got. Just simple things like that. Are they going up, like they're doing a climb in the middle at the hottest part of the day and they haven't got a water bottle with them. They have, all they've got is a phone. Or they got bare feet. The Cyanus moss that grows on the rocks up here. It's a black moss, and it's an algae actually. It's a blue green part of a blue green algae, but it's black. So when it's dry, it's really, really good. It's grippy, but you've just got to get a speck of water on it, and it turns into ice.
I've seen that written about. People say these difficult hikes and climbs the mountains get shut for a little bit of rain, and I've not quite understood about that black icy style. But you're saying this is actually an algae.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it's on the cliffs there, and the climbs don't predominantly get shut down because of that. If we get a lot of rain and we get a lot of bad weather, that rain and that all the moisture, it undermines the foundation. So there's potential for rock falls. So that's a lot of the reasons why the national parks will close the mountains. People don't sort of understand. It kills people. It does. Yeah. It's very, very dangerous. It's one of when we have to go do rescues in inclement conditions. Obviously that's one of our biggest risks, like slipping and falling. So obviously we've got, we have processes in place, and we've got anchor systems like the whole of the tourist track on Biwa and Tippergargan. We've got permanent anchors in there. So we've got permanent anchors in there that we can take. We've got little caps on there, and we've got a special tool that we go in, and we've got this screw in our rings that we put in. They're load rated, and they're load tested every year. We load test them, and we send the results off to national parks, and so that they know what's going on. And we obviously had to get permission off the traditional landowners, the Gubbi Gubbi and the Jinnaburra people, which we're very, very grateful that they work in with us because obviously the mountains are sacred to them, and any damage that's done to the mountain, there's healing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So they've recognised their preference is no one climbs the mountains, but people do climb them. So there's got to be an avenue to bring those people down if something happens.
So this is really interesting because and I'm thinking of the photos I've seen and the imagery and the geology and the geography of this area you're talking about. Unlike a lot of rescue organisations that, seem to come in from the top, like in the Blue Mountains where I am, you're doing things differently. So what's different about the work that you do and your teams in Queensland Fire and Rescue? So
we have different levels of rescue technicians at work. So obviously most fire services have vertical rescue, people who can do vertical rescue. And we call them a level 2 vertical rescue technician. So from there, that's a 3-week course. And from there, you can put an application in to do mountain rescue. So from there, we do a 2-week mountain rescue operators course. And that gives you the ability to work on the tourist trails, an area of consequence. So we're probably one of the organisations that will do a rescue from the bottom up. We have the capability to climb to get someone. So if someone's stuck halfway up a cliff, because we don't have the capacity unless we get dropped in by a helicopter or we go up all the way up over the top and come down, we don't always have the capacity to go from the top down, or it might be quicker to go from the base up. So we'll lead climb up to where it is.
Can you explain to people who might not have seen those images of the Glasshouse Mountains and of Biwa, these places you're talking about, what they look like in terms of the landscape and the geology? Is it volcanic or?
It's not flat. They're mountains. They're actual mountains. They're peaked mountains. And I think Biwa is about, the highest one's about 600 metres. So they're not, as far as height-wise goes, when you think of traditional mountains, they're not like massive, like obviously Kosciuszko's, I don't know what that is. That's probably 3,000, isn't it?
Oh, 2,000, 2,2, something about that.
2,2, something like that, yeah. So we're not talking about the scope of those things, but they are very, very steep, especially Tippergargan and on parts of Biwa too. There's a lot of climbing, a lot of recreational sports climbing goes into them, and now that they've become quite popular, there's the tourist trails. There's a lot of people that go up those tourist trails, and the tourist trails are getting, I guess, they are getting eroded away. The amount of traffic that's on there, and obviously with that, the amount of people that goes up there, areas get eroded away, they get slippery, and the more people are up there, there's always a danger of rock fall above you, like someone kicking a rock.
Mm.
You get hit by a rock coming down, you're gonna know about it. So we have got that. So we've got to have the ability sometimes to get to someone. So we'll have two groups. One team will go up over the top and come down, but while that's happening, one group might climb if it's quicker, and you need to get someone there to make someone safe. So we, like all services, the fire service is no different from anyone else. We love an acronym.
don't you just?
Yeah. We love a good acronym, but we've actually got one that we use specific for that. So we use an acronym called LAST. So we locate, we make access, we stabilise, and we transport. So locating, we'll get a phone call, usually a 000 call, and it'll come through our fire communication centre. And it might come from QAS or the police. Someone will ring up. They'll ring up 000 and they'll speak, and then it'll get passed on to us. And the information was either, that's still soft information as far as we're concerned. We're looking for hard information because what someone's telling them, what they're seeing, might not actually be where they are. And the communication, the information gets blurred as it gets passed down the line as well too. So the information we're getting might not quite be actually where it is, and the locations, might not. So we'll try and get a phone number off someone, and we'll try to ring them.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll ask them might be something as simple as, when you're looking out, what can you see? There's a farm. I can see a farm, and I can see a macadamia farm. Oh, okay, well, we know what side of the mountain they're on. Or we'll ask them to ping a location where they are. We'll talk them through over the phone on how to send us where they are, and that gives us a little bit of an idea too. We can just use Google Maps, So, and we use Gaia as well. So one of the apps, and I'm sure you'll talk about the apps that are available for people too over periods of time. So we'll use a lot of those as well too, and then what we'll try to do is we'll try to get RPAS, which is a drone, so remote aerial pilot. So that's changed everything for us, like our drone capability, and we've got a couple of our mountain rescue people are drone pilots, and they're that good at it. Like they'll find the person based on what they are, and we'll get video footage of it, and they can tell us where they are. And because they're climbers themselves, they'll go, well, they're at this pitch. They'll tell us how far down they are, how many pitches they are, and they can even tell us how wide the ledge is that they're sitting on, and how deep back it is. It's just the technology that's available now is so good. And I was actually looking at there's a young lifeguard, I think it was at Newport Beach, he works out of, and he's come up with this AI program now that can basically tell you where they are and what they are and what the problem is. It's just there's just so much information out there now that's good for organisations like us. So we've got the ability to use that, and then we'll make a determination on where they are and how we're going to get them. So we locate them, we make access, and that might be from the top or the bottom. It might be climbing, and we'll stabilise them. And stabilising might be doing first aid, or it might be keeping them in situ where they are for transportation. So obviously the easiest way to transport someone is via a helo. We'll helicopter them out, but that's not always possible due to the conditions. Helicopters off for something else. So it might be for us to transport them. And if they're injured and we've got to transport them down in a litter, she's going to be a long day.
It's going to be a long day. So speaking of long days then, what's your advice to people if they are finding themselves on a mountain or anywhere in the bush, anywhere, and they've realised that they're in a situation that's not great in terms of the time of the day, and that trying to maybe self-rescue or trying to get themselves out of a pickle. What's your advice to them about that?
Get in early and ring up as soon as you can. As soon as you think that you're in trouble, don't try to sit it out. Don't try to think that it'll get better, because it won't. Don't try to self-rescue unless you've got the skills, the equipment, and the ability to do it. You can't, if you've got to climb up somewhere to get something, in climbing, people get cliffed out. They get to an edge, they get to a point, okay, and because they've tried to go further or they've tried to go up, and that's it. They're not going in. There's nothing. It's just like a 100-metre fall from where they are, or it's vertical where they are. They can't get out. So
yeah,
because they've tried to self-rescue themselves, and you don't want to be in that situation. Like, we don't judge people. That's not our job. People get in trouble all the time, but that's what we're there for. We're there to help them. The last thing you need is someone in their worst possible hour is for people to be coming along and going, you shouldn't have been here, giving them a lecture. They don't need this. If you're in trouble and you stick your hand up out in the surf, what do you expect? You expect there'll be a surf lifesaver to come and they'll paddle out on a board and help you.
And you get to use the skills that you've got and you've developed, obviously through your recreational life to start with, and then just sort of and found yourself into now being able to do this for work. Because you love these places and you want people to have those really valuable connections to nature and the bush that we experience.
We do. And, but the other side to it too, Carol, is like, it's a workplace up there for me too. So like, we'll get up there and we'll have to do a rescue with people, and there might be 4 or 5 other people with them, and they'll go, I don't need your help. And I'll go, well, mate, we're putting a harness on you and you are going down. And they arc up a bit, and people burr, I do this every day of the week, Mate, I'm sure you do, but it's a workplace for us now, So we're bound by workplace health and safety, and we're also bound by the training because of that, the training packages that we teach. And we've got a lot of, rules and regulations with what we do, what we can do and what we can't do, and areas we can go into. And like, we designated what our operators and then technician where they blur, and it's not a clear-cut case of us just going up there and performing a rescue. There's so many intricate parts that sort of go into place with performing this rescue and doing it successfully. And it's not just about getting the rescue, it's about getting everyone off the mountain at the end of the day. It can be very thankless, but it can also be very, very rewarding. The bad, there's plenty of bad things too, but there's also plenty of good things. And that's the big thing I'd like to sort of impress upon everyone, preparation and consequence. Be prepared, have the right shoes, have some food, have a jacket, the weather changes up here like all the time. People go up at 2:00 in the afternoon and think, oh yeah, this would be cool. They've got a singlet on, a pair of shorts. In the middle of summer, that rock, we've had thermal imaging cameras, and the rock's over 50 degrees, it's 50, 60 degrees. That black moss heats up, and then by night time, we'll get a cold front come over. And, it's freezing cold.
Massive thanks for the support from the team at Paddy Palin, who since 1930 have been leaders in travel and outdoor adventure. In fact, did you know that Paddy himself, a member of the Sydney Bushwalkers Club, was a volunteer in the original search and rescue arm of the Federation of Bushwalking Clubs in New South Wales? Nice one, Paddy. So something I find interesting, and you mentioned this right at the beginning, is that you've had 3 fatalities this year already.
This year, yeah.
So when I, as someone from the south, thinks of when would I want to go to Queensland for some adventures, I always think, well, I want to go in winter. I want to go about this time of year, right?
Yeah.
But it's making me think that a lot of these incidents that you've been involved with are happening during, say, summer holidays, when people are sort of thinking, oh, I'm going for a Queensland holiday in summer.
They are. A lot of them are weekends, and a lot of them are in high volume sort of like times like public holidays. But I will preface what I just said about those fatalities too. Like while can't really comment on much because of their work sort of thing. Probably the young girl and her boyfriend that fell not long ago. They'd climbed the mountain lots of times. They were prepared. She got on a phone and she checked the weather app, and it was just, it was tragic, and there was a lot of, like, I choose usually not to look at social media because of all the experts out there, and I find it very hard. Like, I'd like to get on there and comment, but I just don't. They were, I would say they were well experienced enough to be doing that and to be doing what they were. The weather came over. Once again, they weren't inexperienced, let's put it that way.
Something that social media has done is it's made empathy disappear in a lot of ways. And one of my recent guests, we just talked about actually showing kindness to people involved in something, kindness to their loved ones, kindness to the people like yourself who may have been involved in bringing about a resolution to things. Is like, if we could just dial back up the kindness and the empathy online, then people would be, perhaps less nervous about calling 000 when something's not quite right. Less nervous about this because we don't judge,
No, like we said before, call early. The moment you think that you're in trouble, that's the time to call. It's not like 5 o'clock in the afternoon just before it gets dark, because we're still not going to get there for another hour or so.
Yeah.
And then we're not going to be able to do anything for we won't start climbing for an hour after you get a phone call,
Yeah.
That's the reality. We've got a couple of the guys who live at the base of the mountain, and they got a little bit of gear there, but, the longer you leave it, the longer it's going to be. It's going to be night time then. If it's winter, it's going to be cold. There's just so many variables in place, Caro, that sort of make it harder and harder. And, and like you said, the empathy's, social media's probably taken away the empathy a bit. It's opened up the mountains to people who probably wouldn't have thought about doing it before, because it's all everything's a challenge. Let's do this challenge. Let's do this challenge. And
interesting.
It's opened it up, but what it hasn't done, it hasn't shared what you need to do that challenge. Physical fitness is like the guy who actually started the mountain rescue for us, a guy called Greg Toman. And Greg went overseas and he did a Churchill Fellowship. And he's probably one of the most experienced rescue people in Australia, He's such a great guy, and he's so knowledgeable, and he's just got so much information. And Greg set this up. He's the one that started our mountain rescue after that incident in 2016 where we got called to those two chaps that got stuck up on the mountain, and we realised we didn't have the capacity to actually do mountain stuff. Like, we had the capacity to go off the side of a building and do an industrial job, but as far as doing stuff from the base up and to doing it in the natural environment, we didn't have the ability to do that, and it's everyone. There's not a fire in the world that won't, or any sort of service in the world that won't go, mate, we've got to do something, Police are classics for it. They'll run in and do something because that's just what people who do this job, that's what they want to do. They want to help people, So, and it's very, very hard. It was very, very, I was there that day and we were going, mate, we should be doing something. We've got to do something. We've got to do something. But, Greg made 100% the right choice. He went, no, we don't have the ability to do this. But what we do have the ability is we have the ability to build a capacity to do this. SES did it before us, and they sort of ran out of the capacity to do it as well too, because, I mean, you're involved with the SES, you know how time consuming it is. If there's a natural disaster, everyone goes, oh, we'll get the SES in. But those people have got to take time off their work. It costs them money. Got to take time off. If they're running a business, got to be away from their family. They're not getting paid for it. So the ability to maintain those skills and that all the time, it's a reasonable financial sort of burden on people. And I get that, not just financially, but time-wise. Whereas I'm lucky I can get paid to do it, and I do it during work hours. A lot of my training, we go on workshops and we do training a few times a year, or most of the winter time I'm up on the Glasshouse Mountains running courses or
so good.
We're doing workshops, and when I'm not doing that, I'm up there climbing.
So I want to ask you about the preparation stuff.
Yep.
you're coming to visit the Glasshouse Mountains. Here's what you should think about before you go on a hike, and here's what you should take with you.
Your first step is to look at reputable websites.
Right. Okay. How do you find those?
There's bushwalking websites and, there's even, if you're going to look stuff, there's even the Crag, the climbing guide. That's got a pretty good sort of thing on there. But the Crag doesn't tell you the dangers. It tells you the approach to it, and it tells you how to climb it because it's a climbing website. The SES has got stuff. There's so many organisations out there that provide that information. So that would be my first thing, would be to have a look and see what you're actually going to climb. Looking at people on Instagram who are up the top, waving their arms around, going, fourth one for the day. That's not information. That's bravado.
Yeah.
You need that information. And then my next step would be to have a look and see what equipment you need. So obviously you need a good pair of shoes. A pair of running shoes doesn't cut it, They're soft, and if you lean over in if you put your foot on a pair of running shoes in an angle, it's your foot slides in it. So obviously you need a good pair of shoes, and there's nothing on the mountain that beats a pair of volleys, a pair of cheap Dunlop volleys,
Oh, spoken like a crusty old canyoner there.
Yeah, definitely. But that's what it is, There's nothing that beats. If you're going to do this regularly, go and buy yourself a pair of Dunlop volleys. They might not be the most fashionable, but you might come down alive or without an injury.
Yeah.
Or if you want to go even further, there's plenty of good pairs of like approach shoes. Like we use approach shoes at work, obviously, and I'm lucky because the fire service doesn't skimp on the gear that they provide us. We've got really good. We use really good equipment, and if I wear my shoes out, I just go and get a new pair.
Yeah,
So I'm lucky like that. And I mean, I know approach shoes can be reasonably expensive, but there's plenty of good ones out there that they're worth, if you're going to be doing this regularly, they're worth the money to buy, because of the Vibram sole, the grip on them. And that's the thing. When you're climbing, that's what's going to save you, that grip.
Yeah.
Having even having so far as wearing sort of like pants, like a lot of the rescues we got, the girls have got their leggings on, or they got their tights on, they slide down the rock. But we see plenty of bare asses up there where they've worn through, or there's bad like gravel rashes, and people get burnt, their hands get burnt,
Yeah,
people take their shoes off because they think they're going to be better off in bare feet. You're not better off in bare feet. You're better off in a pair of volleys.
Yeah.
Having a jacket, taking a jacket up there with you.
Yeah.
Having water. Make sure you've got a phone.
So you've got a small day pack, or a day pack enough to carry all of these things as well, yeah?
Even a little camelback. You got water there, and they've got a pocket in them. You can put your phone in. We encourage people to take first aid kits, to have a basic first aid kit. My first aid kit's obviously, we do a wilderness first aid course, so we do a tactical version of that is taught by ex-military guys and stuff like that, because a lot of the injuries we see are pretty horrific, and we've got to deal with that, So we've got to, we take tourniquets, we take everything, and that's another thing. You need to prepare for the worst to be at your best.
Oh, can we put that on a T-shirt?
Yeah.
Prepare for the worst, because I think a lot of people, they think, oh, I'm going out for a beautiful day in the bush, and you think, if only I had thought of a few things to take with me, would actually help me have the best time in the bush and come back with those fabulous memories.
Memories, yeah. Simple things as downloading a copy of Gaia, or even All Trails or something like that. So if you walk in somewhere and you get lost, you can just backtrack with it. You can use your phone to backtrack. Having water, like seeing how far it is to go in there, and whatever it is, whatever you think it is, you probably need double what you got.
Yeah,
and
that's a good call.
Fitness. And I'll go back to what Greg did, his Churchill Fellowship. He went all through Europe, throughout the mountains over there, and he went to Yosemite, and he dealt, like, obviously he knows a lot of these people. He knew a lot of these people anyway. And the fire service is actually part of ICARA, the International Alpine Association. We're a voting member on that, our mountain rescue group.
Yeah, right.
And we got that through Greg. So Greg went over to a conference over there, and he delivered our big wheel session over there, because they hadn't seen that before, and it was something that Queensland Fire Service got to deliver another other organisations all around the world are using it now. So, but going back to that, one of the biggest things that with mountain rescue, with our capability and what people come down is fitness.
Yeah.
You know, you need to be fit enough to get in there comfortably and to get out, and you need to be fit enough if something happens to see that through.
Fitness and smarts, and so you've got the preparation, you've got your shoes, you've got the right clothes on, like you say, so proper, outdoor pants,
even a hat,
and that fitness part. Because I think when I see photos of these mountains, you've got like flat mountain just shooting up out of what appears to be relatively flat agricultural land. And it is this big lump of rock. And if you're going to get 600 metres up this thing, that's a haul.
Yeah, you take it further down to Mount Barney, you've got like a 3 or 4 hour walk in before you even start climbing.
Absolutely.
So you've got to have a fitness capability. So to get up to Peasants Peak or Logan's on Mount Barney, you need to be prepared for an 8-hour day.
Exactly. And most people think, I go to the gym, for an hour, a couple of times a week. It's like, no, this is endurance. This is the whole day, not just an hour or two in the gym.
And that's it. And I, even as far as I'm concerned, when we do rescues and that, we've got a lot of young fellas now who are keen and fit. Like I'm almost 60 this year. So, so I'm probably getting towards the other end of it as far as these. And I'm, like we've got to pass a fitness test every year. We've got to do that, do the arduous pack test, and there's certain things we've got to do every 6 months to keep out, to maintain. We've got to do so many yards as an instructor and as a technician. We've got to do so many yards of climbing, sort of thing. And so we keep a track of what we've got to do, and so we've got to maintain our skill base through workshops and through our own fitness to do that. So it's you look at what's involved with that, and it's a young person's game. It really, really is. Like I've got the technical skills now. I've still got the technical skills and everything like that. But if we've got a job that's going to be going for a day and a half or 2 days, like it can do on Mount Barney, I'm going to be looking at the young fellas that go and do that. You got to know your limitations when it comes to that. Like I'm still capable of doing it, but there's probably other guys there that are probably a bit younger than I am, a bit fitter, They'll bounce back a little bit. I don't bend and bounce anymore. I snap.
Is it tough to get into then? Like in terms of and I know that you've got women in your in the mountain rescue team as well.
You bet we do. We have quite a few. We have technicians and
is it difficult to get into?
If you've got an interest, no. We've got people who've never climbed before that are doing it. I got a text message this morning from a couple of the guys that have only been climbing for probably a year and a half, and they're all going out climbing today. It's a classic day to go climbing here today. The weather's beautiful. They climb like 2-3 days a week now. It's just so it's not hard to get into, but it's difficult to maintain the skills that you need to upkeep to do it. Once again, like I don't climb the grades that I used to anymore. Like I'm very, very happy climbing sort of like a 16 through to a 21. That's me. Mate, I'll climb that and I'll enjoy myself all day. I can probably still get up at 23, probably get up at maybe 24, but I'm not going to enjoy it anymore. You need to know where you sit in the pack of things these days to make it enjoyable for yourself. And if you don't realise that, it becomes a chore. And if it becomes a chore, once again, that complacency and that, you're starting to cut corners. You're not doing things, and it's, it can become dangerous then. I was talking to, like when I climbed down the Blueies a little while ago, I was talking to a fella down there. He was one of the climbing guides out of one of the shops down there, and we were just having a chat, and he was saying, he said, and he was a good climber. He was a really, really good climber, and he was out climbing with his dad, and they were doing the same climb as we were. They do it all the time. He said, I just love getting out here and doing this with my dad. This is Dad's favourite one now. He doesn't go above that. His dad was like 68, you know.
Yeah.
He was making it look easy, you know. I'm just thinking, I'm just going, bloody hell, I hope I'm climbing like that when I'm 68. But he said, yeah, you know, he said, just because you can do something doesn't mean it's the most enjoyable thing. You know, getting out there and being safe and picking something. And I'm going to use the example of Mount Tibrogargan, you know, going and doing the circuit track around the base. The mountain's beautiful. You look up and you can see everything. You know, you can go and climb Mount Nagungun, which is just down the road, which is a nice, easy walk in, and it's you can take your time, and most people are capable of doing that. And the view is exactly the same as it is from the top of Biwa and the top of Tibro. You know, it's exactly the same. You know,
it comes back to that line you just said a second ago, which was it's knowing where you sit, and it's that ability to self-judge, like to understand where your capabilities, your fitness, and your experience lies, so you can make a wise choice that you're going to enjoy, not endure. You know?
No, that's right. Yeah, a timely and an appropriate decision. Is something that's going to be memorable. Whereas something that's not is something you're going to come back and go, why did I do that? And there's been plenty of those with me. You know, it's just, why did I do that? Or I probably didn't enjoy that as much.
Never again.
Yeah, as I should have, you know.
Do you have a personal story about an incident or rescue during an outdoor trip when something didn't quite go to plan? Maybe you got lost, injured, let down by some gear, preparation, or something else. Look, honestly, it can happen to any of us at any time, regardless of how experienced we are. And it's by sharing these stories and tales that we can all learn and help to avoid them in the future. So if that's you, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email to rescued@lotsoffreshair.com. That's rescued with a D. So thinking about the work you do, and I know it's like you said, look, you know, you can laugh, you know, you've seen probably some spectacular sunsets and sunrises in your time, I'm guessing. Again, coming because of the times of day people call.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've had some highs, but, you know, there's another side to the work that you do, and it's and it impacts your recreational world then too, in terms of where you want to go and have your adventures, where you want to go and spend time. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I guess this falls under the category of psychological first aid, you know.
Yeah.
And looking after our mental health and our stuff. And I'm not immune to that. You know, I've got 3.5 months leave off now. If I was to be honest with you, I'd say my cup's full at the moment.
Yeah.
I needed some time off. There's areas now that I won't go climbing. And they're places that I used to enjoy going up, but now I just go, I'll go do something else. You know, because they don't bring back good times for me anymore. It's like, I just think of, there's so many analogies about mental health and how it works. And, you know, my one is, you know, you've got your head's a big triangle, okay? And at the base, you've got blocks that fill it up. So throughout your career, at the base, it might take 4 blocks to get along the base of it. And then as you're going up, you know, it's 3 blocks and then 2 blocks. And then the last block is 1 block. And when your triangle fills up, you're done. You know, so you might take annual leave and it might take a few of the layers out and give you a bit more breathing space. But over your career, you're never going to beat the triangle. The triangle's going to get to the top, you know, and it's, you know, you've got to be prepared for that, and you've got to look out for each other. And as an organisation, you know, there's lots and lots of things in place to do that. The reality is too, do I want to talk to someone that knows nothing about climbing, knows nothing about what I've been through? Nah, not really. You know, they're just, I might as well be talking to the pot plant because they don't know anything about it, you know.
Yeah.
I rely on my friends, people who I work with. You know, I rely on them a lot. I rely on my family a bit too. My brother's a paramedic. He knows when stuff's going on. You know, my wife, Jane, she knows when stuff's happening. And even my kids, both my boys climb. So they know, especially my younger bloke, Ollie, he's a really good climber. He knows there's places that he just won't go, we won't go there. No, he knows that I don't want to go there and stuff like that. So, you know, there's places like that. And the people I work with too, like you know, some of the people who started this journey with me when we first kicked off on that first day, there's probably only of us, of the sort of 10 or 15 people that were there, probably not even that many. There's probably only about 4 of the original people left now, and their cup's full. The other people, they've tapped out for various reasons, whether they were getting older or whether they just, they just had enough.
Yeah.
And, we've got to be thoughtful of that process. And I think once again, it's sort of, when people comment on stuff on social media and we see that, whilst they don't know me and it's not for their comment is not a reflection on me, it hurts. It's like just one comment about something from someone who wasn't there and who wasn't there. Like we're not immune to people saying, "Oh, that was shit. What you guys did, you should have done this and you should have done that," because there's plenty of people out there, and there are plenty of people, knowledgeable people out there, and experts out there, but they're more than likely not to tell you over social media.
Yeah,
they'll make contact with you. And I've had people contact me before and go, "Oh, mate, I saw you guys did this. Why did you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, that's a good point. We're not immune. We're not immune to making mistakes, and we're not immune. We're not immune to being tired. We're not immune to being cranky. We might get a call at 10 to 5 on a Sunday afternoon. I started at 7 o'clock that morning, and that's 10 minutes before my shift's supposed to finish. And I might not get home till 5 o'clock the next morning. I might spend the whole night up there on the mountain because of the conditions. I might not get home at all. We've bunkered down plenty of times up there overnight. And it's not just overnight too. Like we have to, if it's been a fatality, we've spent nights up there with the body, because they can't get it out till the next morning. Like Life Flight and the QG Air are really good. They'll do everything they can to help us out to fly it out, but sometimes they can't. We've got to bring it down ourselves, and that's, like I said, that's a big job, and it's protracted. And then we've done a 10-hour shift or a 12-hour shift during the day, and then we've just spent another 24 hours up there, and we make mistakes when we're tired, just like everyone else does. But the difference is we're open to comments, and I think people socially commenting on stuff, I think we should be, we should be responsible for the decisions we make up there, and we should be accountable for some of the things that we do sometimes, but when people just make comments just willy-nilly when they have no real understanding of what's happened before that or after that or during it, it does hurt us, and psychologically it does affect us.
Yeah.
It's sort of like someone will make a shit comment just off the cuff. That'll affect some of us for like ages. We'll always be thinking about that. We've got very, very good support we've had a lot of commissioners and assistant commissioners and who've stood behind us, and they've gone into bat for us with everything, with funding, and we're a long way from where we started, and the equipment and the gear is a long way. If I look back on the first day that we started doing this, and the gear and the equipment they had and the knowledge we had to where we sit now, I'm pretty proud of where we've got to. And once again, like I talked about Greg Toman before, so Greg was probably the driver of this and the instigator of this. And then there's people like the other guys who I work with, who I'm sure Scotty and Matt and guys like that, and Grant, and all the other instructor group. Where we've got to where we are now, it wouldn't have happened. And we've put a lot of our own time and our own work into it as well too. So there's a lot of stuff we've done that's unpaid. It's like this, it's like volunteers, like the SES and stuff. You do, and how much work you put into stuff for people just to sort of dismiss stuff, and you just think, well, I've just put bloody 3 months of my life into that, and you were just dismissing what I've got to say. It's that has a psychological effect as well. It's not like I said before, it's not intentional from a lot of it, but it's just an organisational thing. And I think organisationally there's so many things that we can do better as well too. And it's up to us. It's up to people like me who are still doing it, and it's up to the rank and file people to do that. It's not, once as you move up the ladder, you become, in an organisation at the ground level, you're working with your team of people. And as you get further up the chain, you're just a dot on a computer. You go from being a person to someone who's on shift. And that's just how organisations work, because you've got to cover stations, you've got to cover things. But I think as rescue technicians and as climbers and people and just good humans, we've got to recognise that amongst ourselves, that the stuff that we say and what we do can have a profound effect on the psychological and mental capacity of the people doing these jobs. And it's not just that; it's the families who've been involved, who've had some and had a loved one that they've lost. I mean, that's one person, it can affect like 100 people easy. It's just like, and it's phenomenal. It's just like,
it's that ripple.
That ripple effect. And we've got to, as humans, I think we've got to do better.
Yeah. And I think there's a message in that for all of us, that if we ever find ourselves in, a forum or a Facebook page or Insta or wherever people are consuming their social media, to actually call it. Like, if someone does, if someone goes for a pile-on, I actually think it's up to us as a community to show the empathy to the situation. And if someone's speaking out of line in that way, just to, again, how do you find that balance of not giving them the pile-on, but just to gently call it, or to even reach out to the admins to ask for their comments to be removed. Because, we all live in this community, this greater community together, and we need empathy, kindness.
And there's a lot of good things too. I saw a young fella. He's on the Sunshine Coast here, and he obviously goes up and down the Glasshouse quite a lot. And I noticed he used to just post photos, selfies up there all the time with his shirt off and stuff. And I noticed the other day that he's been putting up tips, like safety tips. Make sure if you're going to do this, have water, pick the right time of day. So there's a lot of good stuff coming out of it too. And I saw how many followers. He's got a lot of followers. Like, I've got about 6.
Wow, you're really getting up there, mate. You're going to have some. You're going to have some commercial deals soon.
Yeah. I'd like to thank the 6 followers, my 6 friends who commented on my birthday the other day. Like I said, but he's got a lot of followers, and and it's good to see. It's good to see that. And I noticed the National Parks put a little comment on there too. Oh, mate, that'd be great if you could put some tips on there. And I'd like to see that sort of stuff happening more. It's like, we have got these mountains, and people are going to do it. And whether you think people should be climbing or whether you don't think people should be climbing, it's people are climbing them. So I'd like to see them do it safely. It's sort of, we need to be doing things safely, or we need to not be doing them. That's kind of where I sit with it. We try to work as much as we can. We work within our framework of the Queensland Fire Department, but we also work with the national parks, and we work with the First Australians as much as we can. And like I said, they've been really, really supportive of us over the period of time we've been doing, and that's been fantastic. And whether they are a reasonably small group of people, but they are very, very significant, whether you believe that or not, they are a very, very significant group of people in our heritage and our past, and it's, so we've got to be taking into consideration what their beliefs are too, so I don't know, that more holistic approach, like I was talking about before, that more holistic approach, where you're going, what you're trying to achieve, the equipment you got, what you've got, is it suitable? Is it suitable for what you're trying to achieve for the day? Have I told someone I'm going up there? Have I rung them when I got back down,
Have I checked the weather? All those kind of things. Have you checked
the weather? It's not as though you can't check the weather now with your smartphone. There's 1,000 websites. So you can look at the bomb site, you can look at Willy Weather, you can target in exactly where you're going for it. You can ask people advice on those forums.
Yeah, local knowledge.
I'm thinking of doing this. Hey, has anyone done this? Can someone please give me some advice? For every 2 rubbish comments, there'll be 8 really, really good ones with people who've gone, oh, mate, I don't think you should do this today? Or what have you thought about doing this? Or make sure you're prepared with this and do this. This is what I did to do it successfully, because there's a lot of really qualified people out there, and there's a lot of there's a lot of people who are prepared. Like I said, there's a lot of clubs. There's, there's a lot of people who do have got a lot of information and got a lot of experience and with our community too, you only got to go somewhere and someone will start talking to you about something. They love it.
I love it. I love it. Small towns, small villages.
They found someone who want to talk about what they're talking about, It's awesome. Like when we were in Katoomba, mate, there wasn't like 5 minutes went past where you're not talking to someone about something, or someone's asking where you've been, or have you done this climb, or have you thought about this, or, hey, why don't you not climb tomorrow? The weather's going to be crap. Go and do this walk.
Yeah.
It's just like even the canyons. Like I haven't been down Claustral Canyon for years. It's probably 30 years since I've done Claustral Canyon. And I was thinking of doing it next time I was down there with my son. And I got on. It's all changed, it's all changed, like the entrance and the exit points and where you go in from where we used to go in and stuff. And, I just got on a forum and I asked a couple of people. There was like 40 comments within half an hour of people going, I'll have to think about this, do this, do this. The information's there if you choose to look for it.
And there are good people doing good work and putting good information out there. And I'm wondering if maybe rather than celebrate and reward, the bare-chested shaking, 10 peaks today on top of a mountain selfie, we actually reward people like that local bloke you talked about in the sunny coast who's going, actually, well, here's a tip. Here's still a beautiful image of something, you may want to go do.
I can't remember his name because I just thought it was that good that I would have even loved to give him a shout out,
Well, I'm sure somebody listening to this will know who we're talking about, or will be able to suss him out. And I'll put a link in the show notes and a bit of a shout out, because it's that kind of stuff. It's actually, look, we don't want to gatekeep and stop people from connecting with these places. No, we want people to have a great time and come back to do it again, and to help your team out and your friends and the people, the colleagues you work with.
We don't want to nanny state people either too, because no, I want people to go out and experience stuff. Sometimes the best experiences are the ones that went a bit pear-shaped.
Because we all learned from those. We come back and we go, well, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. Like I said, it's, having the capacity to do this, and, we do talk to other rescue organisations a bit too, find out where they're sitting. Rescue is a very insular thing.
Yeah.
If you think you're the best, you're not. If you've got to tell yourself you're the best, you're not. You need to be sampling from other organisations. You need to be sampling from other groups. And as a traditional fire service, we're very good at taking something and creating our own thing and sticking to it. Like I said to you earlier, Caro, about our rank structure, like the fire service obviously has quite a rigid rank structure. It's based on military, I guess, and police is the same. And we always have someone who will control the job, like an incident controller, but they might not necessarily be the person who's in charge on the mountain. We'll have someone who's just started for someone who's been doing it for like 15 years. They've got just as much say in stuff as well. If someone says to me, hey, Bill, I'm not happy with that knot, or I'm not happy with something, maybe they've seen something that I haven't seen, so I'll just take that on board straight away. Might be nothing wrong with it, it might be just like, they just haven't recognised something. So with regards to that, like we'll keep our training, like with what we use, in the knots we use, all the gear we need. So we need to be able to recognise a knot when we first done it, whether it's 2:00 in the afternoon or whether it's 24 hours later at 2:00 in the morning. We need to be able, in the rain, and we've been up for 24 hours, we need to be able to look at that and go, I recognise that, because that, once you start to get that fatigue and stuff going, we need to be able to do stuff. And we had one of the guys not long ago, he got one of the other fellas to change his system and change the knots, because he didn't recognise the knot he did. And it's a knot he uses every day of the week. It's every day of the week this fellow uses that particular knot. And he said to the other guy, I don't like that knot. And the other fellow's looking at it and goes, nothing wrong with it. Yeah, right, I'll change it. But it was just, it's fatigue. And the fellow who didn't recognise it, like he's punching 27, 28s leading.
Yeah, wow.
And he's one of these crazy guys who base jumping his whole life and doing stuff like that. And just fatigue, and just sort of like, you get focused on something and you get fixated, and that situational awareness and everything sort of like just and it happens to everyone. It happens to everyone in every organisation, whether you're military, whether you're police.
Or even just for hikers, just for
And
anyone
hikers
doing
too, yeah.
weekend recreational stuff, like you do stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And you'll just go, oh, wait, hang on, what have I done? You know?
Yeah, that
And
complacency,
complacency. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, the two things, like complacency and distraction, they'll kill you every day of the week.
Situational awareness, confidence and competence.
Yeah.
I think we've got the front and the back of the T-shirt now, Billy.
Yeah. So, like I said before, that incompetence without consequence, it leads to confidence, and that's probably not related so much to complacency and distraction, because there's been so many good people have got injured who are very, very competent, and it's, I've gone down a rope before and got to the bottom and just gone, there's no knot in the bottom of that.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky, everyone's lucky at some stage, but you just don't want to be that time when you're unlucky. And that's why when we climb and when we do stuff, we have other people there and we check, we double check and we check each other out. We have a look at, before we climb, we'll have a look at each other's equipment and each other's. We'll make sure we got the right gear for the job, or we'll make sure we got enough gear to get to the job and do the job, because there's nothing worse than, because, if we've got to take a drill up to drill, those drills weigh 4 kilos, it's like by the time you carry everything, sometimes our packs will be like 30, 40 kilos when we hike in to get to somewhere. So we'll have to hike in for a couple of hours and then we'll have to actually climb. So we're fatigued before we even get to the base of the mountain, before we even start climbing. We haven't even done the rescue or started the rescue, so we've got a level of fatigue before we even get there, so it's, we've got to make sure we've got these self-checks and that situational awareness,
and the systems,
and that goes for people who are just going out on a day hike or going, you need to self-check, you need to have, even if it comes down to just having,
how much water do I have?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, Billy, I'm going to start wrapping it up, but I want you to have a think about if there's anything you want to talk about that we haven't touched on yet, and whether that be messages to people coming to the local area, to other emergency services and other like colleagues of yours across different services, any messages you've got for the listeners.
Yeah, look, people coming to the area to do stuff. I mean, we're close to Brisbane too, so there's a lot of people come up for the day. The stuff I would say, do a little bit of research. Don't just take stuff off the internet, off Instagram or Facebook. I'd say do a little bit more research than that. Get out there and be prepared. Have a look what you need to actually do the job. What do you need to do the task, whether it's a job or whether it's going for a recreational hike. Be aware of timeframes. If something says, it's going to take an hour to get up and back, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. That's usually based on someone with a medium level of fitness. A young fit person might do that in half the time, but someone who's hasn't done much at all might take double the time. So always give yourself enough light. And if you do get into trouble, call in early. There's no embarrassment in calling in. There's none whatsoever. There's zero judgment from us. That's, to us, it's a job, and we'll thank you more than likely if you've called it in early. If you said to us, we got in trouble, so we wanted to call it in early, we'll be high-fiving you and go, mate, that 100% that was the exact right thing to do.
Yeah.
We'll do that every day of the week. So there should be zero. There might be a little bit of a personal pride, dent in your pride, but, you can live with that.
Yeah.
You can live with that, and it's easier rather than leaving it till later and making the job harder. I'd like to shout out to all the fire service for letting us do this. It's sort of like, it was a big decision, and, for a lot of people to actually do this, they probably didn't want to do it to start with, because it's so far out of the scope of what's normal. The two most dangerous things in the whole of fire brigade are mountain rescue and swift water rescue, because you have zero control over what's going on. You're at basically at the mercy of the elements. And there's so many things that can go wrong in climbing, with mountain rescue and having to do stuff. You're relying on the quality of the rock, you're relying on the gear, you're relying on the weather, you're relying on so many things that are completely out of control of what we're used to. We can't put in those safety measures, we can't put in those control measures and that risk mitigation like we do with other roles that we do, at work. So the fire service has been really, really good, and Steve Smith, our commissioner, he's been phenomenal, and no, our old commissioner up the coast, Gary McCormick, he was instrumental in pushing it as well too, and supporting us, and John Corkett as well. I can't thank all those guys enough for letting us do what we do, and another fellow, Matt Quinn, and Ben Carroll for, helping get this thing going. It's just the QAS, our QAS friends and colleagues too, they want to come up and help, but they can't. It's really, really hard. It takes two of our people to look after one QAS person up there, so it's hard. So they get frustrated all the time, not being able to help out as much as they can, but they do a phenomenal job with doing the after patient care with us, and I know even just looking after us at the job too. Like they're just, they are troopers. They're like everyone. They're underpaid. They're overworked, and but they just trooper on. All the paramedics and the up the coast who do look after us, and they do look after us, and they got our back every day of the week. The QG Air and the Care Flight guys who fly in take all the glory and go, we've got to come down, mate. We still appreciate it because there's nothing hard. We if they don't come in and take the patient, we've got another 6 to 8 hours to get them down.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's all the people involved, even the QPS, the police service, everyone that's the general people, the public on Beerwah, the local people, they're supportive of what we do all on that local area. And also like the National Parks and Wildlife Service and the Jinnaburra and the Gubby Gubby as well. We can't do this without people's support, and we can't do this. There's frustration at all levels all the time, but the underlying thing is we want to help people. Yeah. And that's where we sit with this. Like I said, please call us early and let us do it. Let us do our job.
And that's the thing, like that sense of teamwork, and you're not there alone. You are there as part of not just one team, but a bigger team, which goes to all these organisations and people you've just talked about, who are just there doing the absolute best they can. Someone said to me once, and it was someone within the ambulance service said, our job isn't to save lives, because the reality is we can't always do that. No. But our job is just to do the best we can.
Yeah. And you can only do that sometimes. We're very, like I said, we're very, very critical of what we do. Each of us do. So we're probably our worst enemies. But it's just the way it is. It's And people like you for doing this podcast gets it out there.
Getting it out there.
People get it out there. Let people know. It's just like,
and that we can all learn.
And we can all learn, and that's it. We've got the opportunities. We've got so many great opportunities in Australia. We've got so many good young people too. Like, young people get a bad rap, but they're not. They're fabulous, they're up against it more than anyone, But yet they get up every day and they're still smiling and they still want to do these things, They want to get out there and they want to do stuff.
So good.
And that's for me. As someone who's always done that and who's a lot older, I see my kids and I see all the young kids that work on the beach, and I'm just in awe of them. I love them. I love young people. I just think Australia's got a really good future ahead of it, and I think it's, we've got to give them an opportunity so we can do that.
Yeah, so good.
And part of this is what we're doing today.
Yeah. Oh, Billy, thank you so much. And from a punter perspective, thank you. To you for the work that you've done, the work you continue to do, for training up the new people to come after you to be doing these things. All the best for the rest of your break, your time off. I hope the surf is always absolutely exactly how you want it to be.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of surfing and plenty of climbing, Cara, so yeah.
Excellent. Well, if you ever make it down to the Blueies again, we'll have to catch up and have that cup of coffee in the cafe. I know just the place.
Fantastic. I love it.
If you've enjoyed this powerful story, or one of the many others from my super generous guests, you can help more people connect and hear these valuable lessons simply by leaving a 5-star review. And why not even click that little bitty share button on your podcast app and help your outdoorsy mates find it too. The Rescued podcast is produced on the unceded lands of the Gundungurra people of the Blue Mountains of New South Wales. I pay my respects to the elders past and present and acknowledge their enduring connection to and care for country. Special thanks to our sponsors, Paddy Palin. This has been a Lots of Fresh Air production.